louder than the voices of the fans.
For Tuesday, the 15th of October, I'm Randy Katarey. This is Voice of the Fans Canada. Hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for joining us. If you are catching us live on YouTube or downloaded tonight's episode via your favorite podcast catcher, hope you also had a great long weekend if you are especially north of the 49th parallel. Find us on most social media platforms at VOF Canada. Major League Baseball is getting down to the heart of the playoffs with the League Championship Series underway, and of course, both the American League and National League. Can America's team be found in New York? The NHL survived the first week, and the Western Conference champs are off to a bit of a sluggish start. The NBA is set to tip off next week, where again could the U.S. be pulling for that team in New York? And sticking with New York, did the Jets and the Buffalo Bills find a spark plug after a couple of rare midseason trades? The Roundtable has assembled for this evening. Tony Antoniou is back once again. Tony, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Randy?
Doing well. Thank you so much. And it may look like he's at Highmark Stadium. And Neel Katarey, for the second time in two roundtables, is battling a cold. He is a trooper and also joins us once again. Neel, you're a legend. What's going on? And Neel is on mute. Let's see if we could change that.
Yeah, appreciate that, Randy. I may be feeling down, but that Amari Cooper news got me feeling up today. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's nice.
Yeah, no, for sure. And speaking about up, maybe he's a little up after a big trade happening with his beloved New York Jets. And I mean, with a heavy emphasis on New York sports, it's a real, great coincidence that we welcome back a dear friend of the show, Jake Cardinale, once again. Jake, you must be on top of the world right now.
Yeah, it's this is as good as my sports teams have been probably in the 22 years I've been alive on this planet. Mets look good. Knicks should be good. The Rangers should be pretty good. Jets, we'll get to that a little later.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to that a little later, and who knows, maybe the Jets might be a little good as well. But I mean, Jake, we might as well start things off. Oh, by the way, Jake, I mean, as you are joining a roundtable with three Canadians, I do want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I'm not sure if you are aware that it was Thanksgiving on Monday. So on behalf of all of us north of your border, happy Thanksgiving, sir.
Thank you. Are you saying it was Thanksgiving where you guys are? Because Thanksgiving for me is in November.
Correct. Yeah. So in Canada, we celebrate.
Really?
We celebrate Thanksgiving the second Monday of October.
Wow, I did not know that. So I am learning things on the Voice of Canada. Wow.
Yeah. And you know what? Truth be told, you guys do it a hell of a lot better than us. With the parades, with the football games, the Black Friday sales the day after. I mean, we could definitely take a couple of notes down for sure. But, as you were saying, Jake, in the beginning there, wow, what a great time to be a New York sports fan. I mean, of course, you pledge allegiance to the Mets, but of course the Yankees are puttering around, and they are in the American League Championship Series. And I mean, we're going to talk about the Knicks in a few moments, but I mean, this is a bit of a rare experience for you with your Mets in the NL Championship Series. I mean, how are you feeling right now? How is Mets Nation feeling right now? I mean, it seems that, especially in your part of the world, the United States is really captivated by the New York Mets.
Yeah, Mets Nation feels on top of the world right now. It's been an extremely wild season. You make all those changes in the beginning of the season. You bring in David Stearns to run the baseball operation. You bring in Carlos Mendoza to manage the ball club. A lot of people, including myself, were a little skeptical. Is this going to work? There's been so much failure in recent years, especially after the disaster that was last year. And, they didn't do a whole lot in the offseason, at least at first glance. There was not a lot of hope. They got off to such a bad start. You had fans, including myself, again, bitching, like, what are we doing? And then they caught fire. You bring out the purple blob grimace, throws up the first pitch, and all of a sudden, like that, they just catch fire. Now you got the playoff pumpkin, and just, most teams are powered, by their high-powered players or the high-powered offense or their great pitching staff. The Mets are powered by a purple blob. But whatever works, they're in a National League Championship Series, and they are 3 wins away from their first National League pennant in 9 years.
And, amongst everything else, I mean, we all definitely love an underdog or a team who really hasn't made the party in a while. But I don't know if I was a little surprised to see the Mets getting this kind of attention. I mean, it's one thing when you see teams like the Detroit Lions make the as far as they did in last year's playoffs, and to a degree the Bills. And but I mean, the Mets are obviously being in, if you want to call it Gotham. I mean, I don't know if that's strictly a Yankees term, but you think about their owner Steve Cohen, and just the Mets in general. But it seems that the Mets are America's sweethearts right now.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, this series against the Dodgers kind of feels like David against Goliath, but it's really not. The Mets have had the best record in baseball since June the 3rd, and it's October, the 15th? So it's really not David the Goliath. Like, the Mets could easily win that series. But yeah, like, this is a team that no one really expected to do much of anything this year. They sneak into the playoffs on the last day of that season, that crazy game against the Atlanta Braves, picking up the win in the first game of the doubleheader. And you pull off an upset against the Milwaukee Brewers. You pull off an upset against the Philadelphia Phillies. And, they've done it, like, all these late innings heroics they've had. Like, for a lot of these games, the first 6-7 innings, they haven't scored much at all. Their stars coming out a little earlier in the game, they've had to go to their bullpen a lot, and they just pull it out. P. Alonso with the big home run in Game 3 against Milwaukee. You had Lindor in Game 4 at the Grand Slam. He's had God knows how many moments throughout the regular season and the postseason. Obviously, you win Game 2 yesterday at the time that we're filming this thing. So, yeah, this they become kind of America's team over the last few weeks and months.
And I want to give a shout out to Chris, who did say the most educated sports fan that I know. Some love with our guy Antoniou. And Tony, we're going to get to you in a moment and talk about a little baseball, especially within the Toronto GTA area. But Neel, I was wondering how captivated you are in the Major League Baseball playoffs. I mean, with me personally, being in my mid 40s, definitely the Blue Jays was the top ticket in town, because this was a time before the Raptors, before Toronto FC. Toronto was always a contender to do some great things in the playoffs, 2 World Series in those early 90s. My interest has kind of waned, but I mean, it definitely picked back up after the mid 2010s with those 2 appearances in the LCS. What say you?
Well, first of all, I want to second Chris in her comment on Tony. Totally true. He is the boss. We all know it. We all love it. And in terms of this, Randy, as you guys know, I wouldn't say bread and butter. Baseball's my bread and butter. I am a self-admitted casual fan during the regular season, but I always wake up especially over the last 8 to 10 years. I'd say ever since really the Jays were flipping bats, and Jose was flipping bats and things of that nature. I've been always into the wild card races and the playoffs when they come around. It's entrancing. It's awesome entertainment. It's the pinnacle, just like the NHL. It's the pinnacle of sports is the playoffs. And one of the things that I mentioned the NHL, I mentioned baseball. The biggest thing for me that makes it such an exciting thing every year is the parity. Baseball has some of the best parity of any of the professional sports out there. I mean, you just look at last year. Both number one seeds in each league lost in the divisional series. They had a bye and they lost. It was Atlanta and it was, I believe, Baltimore. And the 5th and the 6th seeds were the ones that played in the World Series. And you got to love it as a fan who just like, there is no David and Goliath. And looking at the Mets, David versus Dodgers Goliath, not so much of a difference there. To speak on Jake's point, look, Steve Cohen has the deepest pockets of any owner in the whole league. We know that. The Mets, they were good on paper last year, didn't come through. Good on paper this year, and they came through. Hottest team in the league, entering the playoffs. They're still the Dodgers' little brother at the end of the day, a little bit. But I love how this series is coming together. The Mets got the hot bats. The Dodgers had the hot pitching, especially at the end of that San Diego series. Just really lights out until yesterday. And that's what you got to love, like the twists and turns. You think one team's just on a super hot streak, and then they get heat checked out of the building in their own building, just like the Dodgers did last night. And the thing I love about baseball that I've just learned to appreciate year after year, and the most this year, to be honest, I think that baseball is such in a good place right now. They got all the scandalous stuff about steroids sort of in the rear view now. It's so funny. It's like Rob Manfred just finally learned controversy is not good. You see how fast that Shohei Ohtani gambling scandal got swept under the rug? That was insane.
Very true.
I mean, that was just like incredible. The guy gets the biggest contract in MLB history. All of a sudden, huge scandal, sort of swept under the rug, if you ask me. But the chess match of these managers, how they utilize starters, how they manage their bullpens, especially, that's kind of actually the biggest thing for me is how they manage their bullpens. Like Cleveland, they held out all their best bullpen players yesterday. They saved them for today against the Yankees. And I mean, this chess match is so great. It really puts a premium on managing, and it comes through so clear in the playoffs. I love watching the managerial battles as much as anything. And just these big moments, man. Baseball is like the type of sport, kind of like football, is that a big play at the end of the game, a big drive, a big hit, a big inning. There's really nothing like the last few innings of a playoff baseball game when it's close entering the 7th inning. And so I got a great appreciation for baseball, especially the playoffs. I'm always in. I watch as many games as I can, especially if it's close in the last few innings. And I love this. I love the prospect for Jake of a Subway Series in the World Series.
Well, and Neel, you mentioned a chess match a couple of times, and I don't know if fans are ready to call Dave Roberts the Bobby Fischer of Major League Baseball. I mean, it seems that he has gotten a lot of chances, and that he, does seem to come up short. Of course, the Dodgers did win in 2020, but it was the COVID-shortened year, and especially with the likes of Ohtani and Teoscar Hernandez, and you could throw in some big, additional players. I mean, obviously the Dodgers are stacked, but Jake, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you what your thoughts were of Steve Cohen, the owner. Because, especially from the start of the season last year, there wasn't a lot of good news coming out of New York. Now, I'm guessing Mr. Cohen may be able to find a couple of free meals in Manhattan these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, his bank account definitely helps with that as well. But, when he bought the team, there was definitely a sense of hope because the Mets just been so hopeless for so long. And, they were just, they were the Jeff and Fred Wilpon. They ran that team like a small market team, which you cannot do in literally the biggest market in the entire world, arguably. New York, obviously, there's other big ones, obviously, Los Angeles and California. Chicago's a big one, but New York's definitely up there. I would say the biggest market there. And I get the Bernie Madoff thing, but that's a whole other story. They set up a team. Steve Cohen buys it. It's a guy with all the money in the world, lifelong Mets fan. I was like, all right, it's a guy, and at least he cares. And then the last few years it hasn't worked out. 2021 did not go according to plan. 2022, had a great year, a bit of a tough finish, but okay, you think, all right, have a strong offseason, come back strong the next year, spends all that money, have a $400 million payout, whatever the heck it was, and just blows up in your face. Now you're thinking, does this guy know what he's doing? But then he's like, you know what? Let's take a step back. Let's not spend crazy money. And he learned, you cannot buy a team. You just can't do it. And, he decided, let's focus on player development. Let's make some smaller signings, which he did, bring in Luis Severino on a 1-year deal. He brought in Shohei Manaea on a 2-year deal. And he made a lot of those signings, Reed Garrett in the bullpen on a 1-year deal. And he made a lot of those moves. Harrison Bader on a 1-year deal to help out the outfield. And those signings, worked out. Like Luis Severino and Shohei Manaea made more of an impact for the Mets rotation than Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander did the year before. So it's crazy to think about, but it's true. So I think he, as a Met fan, the Wilpons, they didn't care. They could care less. At least Steve Cohen cares. That's kind of all us Mets fans are asking for. At least they're trying. At least when they do things that don't work out, it's like, all right, he tried, it didn't work out. You'll get him next time. With the Wilpons, like, oh, here we go again kind of thing. So at least Steve Cohen is trying, and at least, they're trying to build a team the right way, and it seems like they finally are.
Yeah, and especially with Pete Alonso. I mean, a lot of people were writing him off, and then that home run against Milwaukee. Yeah.
He's shot. When he hit the home run against Milwaukee, I couldn't believe it. That was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony, I mean, of course, you and I remembered once upon a time, as I mentioned before, about, in those early days for you and me, I mean, the Jays were the toast of the city. Obviously, forget about the 90s. You think about the playoff appearances in the 80s and, the response after Joe Carter's home run. I mean, Toronto baseball was just living off of that for decades. But I mean, that was a long time ago. And, I don't know about you, but have distanced myself from baseball and, especially to the days of when I knew from 1 to 25 in the lineup, and especially those in Dunedin, Syracuse at the time, Toronto's AAA affiliate, now in Buffalo. What are your thoughts about day-to-day interest in baseball within Toronto? I mean, are you along the same lines as me, number one, but do you think that the love of baseball has dropped in our city over the years?
No, I think it's still there. It feels like it's still there. Like just from my inner circle, the amount of people that go to ball games throughout the summer is still pretty significant. Now, for myself personally, I can tell you that. I mean, I think it was around Thursday where I just double checked to see who was left in these playoffs. To be honest with you, that's how much I don't watch baseball anymore. And I'm that old man who, wants to see baseball the way it was played once upon a time, I guess. So it's a me problem. It's maybe not necessarily a baseball problem. I think, the analytics of any sport right now, analytics has probably infiltrated baseball more than any other sport that I watch. And it bothers me a little bit. You talked about the Dodgers' last World Series. They won 2020. Was that not the World Series where Kevin Cash made that horrific decision based on analytics to yank the pitcher?
Jake, help us out here. That was
it. Yeah, Game 6.
With Kevin Cash and Blake Snell. Right?
I don't know if our new excuse my language. I don't know if the new format allows us to speak like this. But I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. The pussification of the pitcher. I call it the pussification of the pitcher, and the way they're handled bothers me greatly. And the emphasis on home runs, and I miss the stolen bases. The move the batting order along. the old National League style baseball. So yeah, I don't follow it as much, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously my interest will be piqued a little bit as we're down to the final four. I think you know the prospect of a Subway Series is got to be exciting no matter where you are. If you're a baseball fan, even if you hate the Yankees, even if you're a Red Sox fan, you have to think you're going to tune in and watch it. But I think the interest in Toronto is okay. The renovations they've done to the stadium has attracted people out there at the Rogers Center. But obviously, we're not happy with the current situation where the team is at. The fact that management is still there and that they're going to get another shot at this thing. So we'll see how it plays out next year.
You know, Tony, I am with you on a number of things, especially with pitching in baseball. I mean, Jake, I mean, you and I have even chatted about, the how common major arm injuries are with pitchers. And I mean, it wasn't like that 30, 40 years ago. But I have to say, and Jake, I know that you're the president of the Rob Manfred fan club, but at least you were a couple years back. But I mean, with regards to eliminating the shift and the pitch clock, there was another item that the adding the DH in the National League. I mean, I'm for those. I mean, Tony, I'm with you 100% with regards to, this emphasis on home runs. But, what do you guys, Jake, I don't know about you, but, if you could appreciate what it was, 10, 15 years ago. But with regards to eliminating the shift in the National League, well, I mean, hey, you're a National League fan. Are you a fan of the DH and some of those changes that have taken place over the past couple of years?
Overall, those three rules in particular, I do like. The pitch clock, I like. At first, I was skeptical. I was like, I don't know if it's going to work, but it was pretty clear early on that this was definitely the right move. Games were a little bit too long. You got to care about those casual fans. Diehard baseball fans like myself are going to watch baseball no matter what. But the more casual fans, if the game is 3 hours and 20 minutes and it's 4-3 and 9 innings, no one's going to really want to watch that. And it's definitely helped. It hasn't messed with the flow of the game, so that one's definitely worked. The shift, I never really liked the shift. I get why people are against it because you can't tell guys where to stand. I'll be like if the NFL banned too high safety. I get the comparison there. But also, the shift was never good for baseball. Like, there were times where, the third baseman would be on the other side of third base, and the guy would hit a pop-up to third base, which normally would be, obviously, a can of corn. This is the major league, and just fall inside the lines for a base hit because there's no one at third. Like, I'm sorry, that's not baseball to me. So I'm kind of glad that they did that. DH, I never liked the DH for a long time. To me, I thought it was a way for you to hide a player that just couldn't field. You're able to hide them, but still hit them. And to me, I thought at one point it kind of took the strategy out of the game because, a few years ago, I won't say back in the day, but it was only 5 years ago before DH was in the National League. You got pitchers pitching really well, but it's late in the game. You're down 1-0. Do you pinch hit for him? Do you leave him in the double switches? So I thought it took a little bit of the strategy out of the game, almost made it a little easier on the managers. But that being said, a couple of pitchers got injured. Hitting Masahiro Tanaka from our Yankees starting pitcher got hurt running the bases, hurt his hamstring. Actually, against the Mets, I think it was 2018 or something. He was never the same again. He's now pitching in Japan. There was a foreign pitcher in Washington years ago, I think, got hurt swinging the bat. Adam Wainwright, I think he blew out his Achilles or a patella tendon or something, running the first base. He was never the same again. So, and pitchers, they were hitting 130 as a group. I mean, they don't hit in the minor leagues. So when the guy comes up, the last time they hit was their second year of college. So
but and it also looked ridiculous. I mean, some of these swings, I mean, it was just a complete waste of an out. Excuse me.
When I was in high school, I played baseball. I was I have better swings than these dudes. These are professional athletes, and I'm some freaking high school kid. So, but yeah, so over time, I've kind of gotten used to the DH. Also, at the time, the Mets were in a spot where they had just so many talented position players coming up, so it actually kind of helped them. It's just from my perspective. And overall, ended up being the right move, I think, for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be that way. And before we move on, Tony, I think mentioned that the possibility of a Subway Series, and we do know Jake's really hoping for that. I mean, I don't know how jazzed you could be for Guardians Mets World Series, but Neel, I mean, if you were Major League Baseball, do you think there would be a preference between a Subway Series or Yankees Dodgers? Because yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to look at it two ways. In the state of New York, the biggest thing by far would be a Subway Series. But on a world stage, there's nothing that's going to come higher than Yankees Dodgers. And you're talking about Lakers Celtics type stuff here. Yankees Dodgers. And I don't know if they've played in any recent or any World Series in the past. Jake would probably know better than I.
99, right, Jake?
But look,
it was the 2000.
You got the NL MVP and the AL MVP. The biggest, arguably, international sports star in the world, or one of the top major ones in Otani. And you got Judge, who the storyline there is he has been terrible in the playoffs after being historic in the regular season. And what a better place coming in cold into a World Series against the Dodgers as a storyline there. Hit a big walk-off home run maybe in one of the games. There's so much on a big money market level, on a small-time nuanced story time level. I think that it'll pale in comparison, but the world will also love a Subway Series. So it's a win-win for the MLB as long as Cleveland don't get in. And I think the MLB and Manfred is very interested in the Yankees making the next round, which I think they absolutely will. The way this game is going right now, it looks like the Yankees got this on lock.
Well, a couple of things. I personally would love to see the Mets make it, not because Jake's joining us for tonight's roundtable, but Jake, I don't know if you've seen an interview with John Gibbons, bench coach. He is just an absolute beauty. Of course, he was manager of the Jays for all those years and mid 2010s. And I mean, he is a hardcore Texan that, I mean, obviously you could just feel the passion he has for the game, but I mean, he's definitely a couple of guys you could crush 6 beers and a few shots of whiskey. I mean, for the sake of Gibby and yourself as well, Jake. I mean, it would be great to see New York.
One thing, let me add one thing. Just as a observer of baseball, is the Mets are a much more exciting team than the Dodgers. And I know that the Dodgers are big money, Otani, Freeman, Betts, all of that. But the pitching is more exciting with the Mets, with Manaea, the way he's playing right now. And guys like Lindor, Pete Alonso, when he hit that walk-off, I don't know if it was a walk-off, but in the last round against Milwaukee, man, that was huge. Lindor with the grand slam, like Jake said. Like, these guys got more personality, whereas I feel like the Dodgers lineup is a very robotic lineup. Despite all the superstar talent that they have, they come about their business very robotic-like, which helps them win, I'm sure. But for the observer, they don't have that swag, in my opinion, like the Mets have.
And it definitely seems obvious that Major League Baseball is really promoting celebration and, just pimping those home runs and, hard fist pumping when strikeouts take place. I mean, hey, the Edwin Diaz intro song with when he enters the game, I mean, it's beautiful. I'm guessing that he still does that, Jake, but the Timmy trumpet, it's on there. I mean, it's awesome. No, Neel, I'm completely with you. Guys, why don't we head over to hockey? And of course, the season has just started, and going to get to a whole while range of topics. But Neel, being an Edmonton, born and I guess you could say raised.
I was definitely raised there.
Yeah, 15 years. Okay, so an Edmonton man for the formative years of your life. And, of course, it was quite a run that the Oilers did make. I mean, it was quite a season for having such a poor start with, I think it was like a 3-9 record. And then going 0-3 in the Cup final to make it to Game 7, only to lose out by the slimmest of margins. And they do seem to have stubbed their toe a little bit. For you personally, Neel, knowing that you're not the biggest hockey guy in the world, but you do have an appreciation for it. Has your interest in the NHL and the Oilers, has it increased, especially with last year's playoff run?
Yeah, but it has, but that's not because of the Oilers, to be honest. It's just because playoff hockey it always gives me that feeling. Like I was talking about baseball, I just love the hockey playoffs. It often doesn't matter what two teams are playing, although I do target certain teams in their watchability, for example. And Edmonton certainly is one of those teams because they are absolutely one of the most exciting teams in the league. And it was nice to see that they matched that oft excitability with having some reasonably capable goaltending and defense, last year that helped them in that run. And it felt like they broke some barriers because they had been absolutely, along with the Leafs, probably the two most disappointing franchises in terms of expectation versus outcome over the past 5 years. So it was nice to see one of those teams, the team I call myself a fan of, although, to be honest, that high-level fandom has been taken over in the last 25 years by, as you know, the Buffalo Bills and the Toronto Raptors, who those are the only teams I can say I'm diehard for right now. I can't claim to be an Oilers diehard at all, but I am a fan. But at the end of the day, it was nice to see. I still got a lot of friends in Edmonton who I was living vicariously through them, seeing their enjoyment. I had a few friends that actually went to Game 7 in Florida, and I did not talk to them after the game, probably for good reason. They were probably drowning their sorrows somewhere. But yeah, you know what? I like it. Edmonton's not off to a good start. And like I said, just like baseball, hockey is a league of parity, which means you don't get there once, you may not get there again. The great teams do. They often can have mini dynasties here and there. Florida, for example, the hardest thing I think in sports is losing in the Cup final and then coming back and winning it. And Florida did that, if I'm not mistaken. And so we'll see if Edmonton can do that this year. It'll be an exciting storyline for me personally. You're on mute there, Andy.
Man, I was hoping that I got rid of that mute button issue from when I got rid of the last format of the podcast, but such is the case. But, what I was going to say was that, Tony, I mean, you came across a lot of great storylines, especially over the last decade with your beloved Pittsburgh Penguins. And, Sid is back, Malkin's back, but the Penguins are a shell of their former selves. And, after 4 games, they are 500. I believe. But, there's not a lot of big expectations for the Penguins this season. For you, I'm sure that you would rather see Sid in a Penguins jersey until the bitter end. But, is it tough to see Crosby and Malkin continuing to ride this thing out? Because, but Pittsburgh hasn't won a playoff series since 2018.
Wow, thanks for the reminder, Randy.
Hey, as a Leaf fan, cry me a river, okay?
Yeah, you know what? It's not tough. It's not tough because, they've done everything that you could possibly ask of them. Now, to have some perspective here, this idea that there's a narrative that Sidney Crosby is hard done by the organization. Well, if he was, he wouldn't have re-signed, this past month when he announced his extension with the club. I think there's a high level of importance by him to begin and end his career with the same organization. And as long as there's not any problems between ownership and player, and the efforts there to try and better the team, he's gonna stay there, and I'm okay with that. But the mistake was made, and Sid has a hand in it. If you want real perspective, is that he advocated hard for keeping Letang and Malkin 2 off seasons ago. In fact, he advocated really hard for Malkin when he stepped in last minute and made sure that deal was done. And that's great. I'm torn. As a longtime fan, I think it's amazing and so rare in sports that you see, not one guy, not two guys, but three guys who started their careers together as teenagers. It's looking like they're all going to finish together, and that's very rare, and I'm okay with it. You see Steven Stamkos signing with the Nashville Predators over this past offseason, and you got your hands up in the air like, wow, like he's not a Tampa Bay Lightning. He's not going to be a Tampa Bay Lightning. But the reality is that happens more in sports than what we're seeing with the Penguins. I'm a realistic fan. I know that you're getting this emotionally great nostalgic thing where these guys are finishing their career together, but I know they don't have a snowball's chance. Forget the Stanley Cup. I mean, who are they going to take out? When you look at the Eastern Conference, who goes up for them to make it, right? Plus, you have teams getting better as well, like the Ottawa Senators. There's a higher expectation for them. So I'm realistic about it, and he's had a hand in it, like I said. So that's on them to figure it out. But there's no prospect of significance coming up through the pipe. I don't think they've done a good job getting younger at all over the last few years. And so, yeah, is it tough? No, because Sid's still playing at a very high level. He's going to be the captain of the Canadian team in this 4-on-4 team international tournament that's coming up, whatever it is, and he'll probably be the captain of the Olympic team next year as well. So it's not tough at all. He made this bet. He helped make this bet, and just like me and a couple of other Penguins fans that I chat with, we're just enjoying the ride. We're just enjoying the ride, watching these guys ride off in the sunset together. I'm okay with it. It's tough watching games. It's tough watching them play and look so absolutely putrid for like an entire period. Like they're getting completely skated off the ice in some games. I mean, even last night they beat the Montreal Canadiens 6-3, and I was like, well, fuck, they were lucky to win this fucking game, and they won 6. So, but these guys are still playing at a high level. If I'm not mistaken, Malkin is leading the league in points at the moment. I'll double check that for you. So,
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know.
please do.
Them.
But I mean, as you were explaining yourself, Tony, I was wondering. I mean, if let's say that Malkin and Letang weren't re-signed, I mean, isn't that going to look bad on Sid? I mean, is it as impossible as, say, breaking up the Sedin twins in Vancouver? I mean, you have this trio go as long as it did, and I mean, yeah, I know that Marc-Andre Fleury was taking the expansion draft, but I mean, he was part of that Fantastic Four, if you will. And I don't know if it would look that great on Sid if he stuck around and didn't really vouch for his guys. I mean, I'm speculating, of course, but what do you think?
I think it's valid. I think that's a valid point you're making. And I mean, it could certainly look like Sid did vouch for them if one of them were to not re-sign that year, right? Like you could still make it look like, hey, I tried my best, but these guys, it's a business and they know it is, right? Like and they've also got egos and feelings, and if you're not wanted, you're going to go somewhere else. They're not going to, Malkin wouldn't have gotten mad at Sid if he ended up signing somewhere else. I mean, it was a management decision that we were going to let one of them go, and but I think you're making a valid point. Yeah, like there's something to be said for the loyalty. Like I said, it's very rare in sports, so that's why I'm kind of okay with it. Obviously, if you know they didn't have 3 Stanley Cups under their belt, um, it would have been easier to depart and part ways with these players. But these are legacy type contracts, legacy type signings that will see these get players through to the end. And it's something special about the Penguins organization that are able to pull this off now with including Mario. Now you got Sid, and it looks like Gino and Tanger are going to be there as well. It's a rare thing. You don't see it in sports, like I said. Um, that's why I'm okay with it. But I mean, certainly you can't have a situation where Sid turns around and says, "Well, I've had it. I want out. I want you to trade me. I want one more shot." I'd be pretty pissed if he did that because like
Mm,
I said, he had a hand in how it is looking right now.
yeah.
Look, they still think they're stubborn guys too. They're stubborn and they're stupid on the ice sometimes too. They still think it's 2016. They're trying to play that way. They were going toe to toe against the young Montreal Canadiens team last night. Now they won. However, it's not sustainable. You can't play like that. If they don't spend a little more attention on defense, they're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, I don't think they're, like I said, find me the Washington Capitals are the only team that made the playoffs last year that I can say, all right, you can knock them out. But New Jersey is going to be a better team. I think the Ottawa Senators will be a better team. I think Montreal will get better as well. I think they're on that path. And they're younger, they're faster. They've got dynamic players, uh, good goaltending, well coached. It's going to be a climb. It's going to be an uphill battle. That's why just enjoy the ride. Cheers.
It's been quite a ride for sure. Jake, I am really intrigued about what the state of hockey is, especially in the United States. I'm always quite intrigued because it's such a beautiful game in my opinion, and I just don't think the NHL does a great job. And what the heck? Do you guys hear that beeping sound? What the hell is that? Anyway, it's all good. Don't worry about it. But Jake, I'm always been disappointed in that the NHL hasn't reached that next level. I mean, to me, sometimes I think it's they call it the big four, but is it really? I mean, I've been to the US a few times and I don't see the NHL, highlights being shown as, consistently and as prominently as other sports. But we're seeing a changing of the guard with champions coming out of Miami and champions coming out of Vegas, and I mean, of course, the St. Louis Blues has had a storied franchise. But I mean, how far, like how big is the scope of St. Louis sports with the Blues, and hell, even to a degree with the Avalanche. Tampa Bay, I mean, they won back-to-back in a couple of years, a couple of years back. With the last two Cup champions being out of South Florida and in Vegas, I mean, do you think that this is going to move the needle at all in terms of popularity of hockey in the United States?
I think it'll help. It's really tough because, like, in the United States, obviously there's just so many sports that are huge. Obviously, baseball, basketball, football obviously is huge. Professional wrestling is pretty big over here. Professional golf is big over here. So it's very tough. You talk about the big four. I do consider the NHL as part of, like, I guess, the big four. I think it's the fourth out of the four pretty clearly.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, you maybe could have argued baseball, but they've kind of rebounded the last couple of years. They put in some new rules in the game. I mean, a little more interesting. So I do think it's part of the big four, but pretty clearly the fourth. I think it'll help. Obviously, Vegas is a team that's pretty new. You put the team there, opposed to, a lot of expansion teams, including the Seattle Kraken, who are even more recent expansion team in the NHL. They kind of, pick a lot of younger guys and on cheaper contracts. Vegas picked a lot more veterans and, NHL ready now players than you would think. But it's worked out for them because, obviously they're in the playoffs every year. They're contender pretty much every year. You win the Cup 2 years ago, only what it is, your seventh year as a team, whatever it was. So it's
second Cup appearance as well.
Yeah, they went to the Cup in their first year as a team. They lost to, might have actually been
Washington.
It was Washington. That's right. That was when Ovechkin got his championship. So, But yeah, I think it'll help. Sunrise, Florida. Obviously Florida's so big. I'm very bad at geography, but I believe it's a little smaller compared to a lot of other areas in Florida, like Tampa and Miami and places like that. But I think it'll help a little bit. I don't see hockey in America being more than the fourth most popular sport for a little while now. Baseball appears to be on the uptick. Football is always going to take precedent. Basketball, you could argue, is a little bit on kind of moving down. There's a lot of issues with the NBA that people have, myself included. But to me, I don't see hockey.
Specific to what, Jake?
Just
With the NBA.
Not enough defense, too soft, just things like that. Team building has gotten really hard with the new rules of the CBA. So a few things with the league that are kind of drawing viewers away, I think, a tiny bit with the NBA. So, I know there's a little more parity now. Boston's kind of always there. Obviously, we'll get to New York Knicks a little bit later and basketball a little bit later in the show. I know, Randy, you mentioned that. But I do think I'm down a little bit because of those issues with the league. The in-season tournament, to me, I know, like, in that period, the games were exciting. To me, that makes no sense. I never got the point of it. But I don't see hockey passing basketball. That's the one sport it probably could, because I think basketball's going this way, well, baseball's going this way, and football is just it's always going to be one.
Are you suggesting basketball has been pussified as well?
Honestly, I kind of am. The officiating has gotten really soft. The players have gotten.
Let me answer it for you. Yes, it has.
Yeah. And what I'll say is that I don't think baseball can overtake basketball at this point, but I do agree with Tony and his terminology, which I won't repeat on this program. Tony. Haven't you noticed? No, but absolutely.
Let me take the heat for that.
What you guys were talking about, Randy, the question you asked Jake there, and talking about how Florida, Miami, St. Louis, Tampa, a lot of these places win championships in a sport that is inherently Canadian, the most Canadian, the thing we take the most pride in. And like, this is more of a question for Tony and you as well, because I wouldn't really know the answer. I'm wondering, but Toronto to me is in relative to the sport on the level of the Yankees and the Lakers. We are that sort of big market. Everyone in Canada, all the great players, the vast majority of them are Canadian. So we have the talent pool. And I'm just wondering, why is it that Toronto doesn't get that big time talent coming to us as free agents? Is it something with the rules? Is it something with the contracts? I need some insight on this, because it seems like we just run out the same tired lineups of pseudo stars outside of Matthews, perhaps, and we just can't get it together. Like, what's going on with that? As I wonder.
Well,
I think the ignorance.
Tony, go ahead.
Sorry, I just think the ignorance and that stigma of the Great White North is there, and it'll always be there. But it look at Vince, right? You drafted him, he acclimated himself. Yeah, he quit and wanted to get traded eventually, but Kyle Lowry's the same way. The memories will always be fun, but attracting a free agent of that stature, I think it's still there. I mean, taxes are an issue as well. Let's not, let's not sugarcoat it. But that stigma's there, and I think it's always going to be there. It's just there's an ignorance about the fact that it's they look at it like this foreign hell post sometimes, right? Where you just walk around the city of Toronto and it's beautiful. It's metropolitan. It's got cultures left, right, and center. You can do anything you want. You can eat any type of food you want. You can celebrate any kind of culture, right? Whatever you're into, you can get here in Toronto. But I don't think they know that, and it's just there's this fear of going to a different country. I guess that's the way I see it.
I don't know, Tony, because I mean, we have gone, I would dare say, a good portion of my life. I mean, Carmelo Anthony aside, I mean, there really hasn't been a lot of big free agent signings going to New York. I mean, Jake, I mean, before you hop in, and I'm sure you'd want to, but, with the Leafs and especially with Canada, well, not the Leafs, but, okay, Montreal was the last Canadian team to win the Cup. Every Canadian team except for Toronto and Winnipeg made the Cup final. I mean, Vancouver made it twice. They both made it to Game 7. Edmonton made it to Game 7 in this past season, 2006. And in 2006, right?
Six or seven. Yeah.
Yeah, 2006 against Carolina. Calgary made it to Game 7 against Tampa.
Yeah.
And I mean, with the Leafs, they made the conference final in '93. The following year, when they lost to Vancouver, they made it, Tony, I think, against Carolina, early 2000s. And there was probably that was probably one of the last times they made it. But, with basketball, I mean, look, you take a look at the guys who, started and developed quite a career in Toronto in the beginning of their career, or between Bosch, Vince, if you want to include Kawhi Leonard, well, Tracy McGrady especially, those guys wanted to go home. I mean, Damon Stoudemire went back home to Portland. McGrady went back home to Orlando. Kawhi went back home to LA. And I mean, Bosch went to Miami to play with LeBron. So, and I mean, Vince didn't really have any support during his time in Toronto, and he was still one of the most revered and probably one of the best players in the NBA that time. So I don't know. I really do believe it's bad luck.
Yeah,
there's also where the franchises were at that time when all these guys were deciding to leave. If you look at it, but it's also these guys think about their brands too. Their earning powers playing in even playing in Oklahoma City far outweighs their earning power off the court playing in Toronto. That's just a fact. However, but the funny thing is, Austin Matthews will make a hell of a lot more money off the ice playing in Toronto than he probably would playing in Arizona. I mean, that's just facts, right? Because it's the popularity of the game and just what that player is able to attract. So there's also that factor, I think, where players look at it and say, why is it that it's probably better for them to go to Sacramento than it would be to go to the big metropolitan city, fourth largest market, fifth largest market in North America, that is Toronto. Right, it's such a huge factor, especially for players these days. It's all about their brand. But go ahead, Neel.
One of the interesting things you mentioned, Tony, was taxes. And even though I understand whether different country for a lot of these American stars, particularly in basketball, those are big factors. Taxes is another big factor that we have here in Canada. It's of the most horrible tax situations of any North American professional sports environment. So just as a hypothetical food for thought type question, imagine if there was a way that, the Ontario government could provide some sort of tax exemptions for specifically professional athletes. Go ahead. On the basis that whatever millions in tax they are letting these guys keep potentially allows for better talent, better teams, better economic growth because of that. How do you weigh that? And would that be a hypothetical, even if it could never happen, would that be something that they should consider?
Well, and I'm sure Jake may want to chime in as well, with everything all together. But there is no chance I want my government to give a free pass to any athlete. I don't care how passionate I am in sports. If I'm paying X amount percentage of my taxes, you better believe that Austin Matthews is paying his fair share as well.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I think that there is something that each professional league should do and have an equalization tax within the league. I mean, I'm amazed that hockey players don't flock to non-state taxed teams like Florida and Tampa, Orlando Magic. Jake, help me out
Dallas
with
Stars.
Texas doesn't have state tax. I'm not sure.
California, Texas, Florida do not. Oregon,
Nevada doesn't, right?
Nevada.
It's really Texas and Florida as the big dogs in terms of this tax issue.
Yeah. There's been a lot of athletes that do that. They go look at Jacob deGrom. I mean, he's never said it, but they offered him a lot more money than the Mets did. Mets didn't have a huge interest because of the injuries, but you think I I think the Mets offer was like 120 or 130. He got 175 for Texas. But even if the offers were equal, New York, the taxes are insane in New York. Like,
yeah.
They're crazy. In Texas, there's no state income tax, especially considering how much those guys make. The amount of money that they save, these big name millionaires save in taxes in states like Texas and Florida is crazy. So that's why you see a lot of athletes, especially, a little bit later in their career when, they're thinking, all right, this is my last big contract. I'm probably going to retire here, or at least I'd like to. They might go to the West, go not the West Coast, the South, go down South because they do save a lot of money. Obviously, they have bank accounts compared to a normal person, but it is important to a lot of these guys. I know you don't see a ton of hockey players doing it. I mean, the salary cap is obviously a lot higher in basketball and in football compared to hockey and baseball. There is no salary cap, so that's why guys get these crazy deals. But so that might be part of it. You're not getting that much more money in hockey anyway. But yeah, it definitely matters to a lot of these guys.
Jake, I'm kind of interested in what your thoughts are with what Tony said about, Austin Matthews earning more in endorsements in Toronto. Let's say that Arizona still had their team, and let's say that he went back to play in Arizona, his hometown team. I'm probably with Tony with regards to Arizona and Austin Matthews. But let's say that Austin Matthews was in Vegas. I mean, Tony, you're a soccer fan. I mean, let's say that Michael Bradley went to New York Red Bulls. If you ask me, the most earning potential in endorsements Kevin Durant made was when he was with Oklahoma City. Same with Russell Westbrook. I mean, Kawhi got hit with the injury bug, and who knows, maybe he's getting more in endorsements as a Clipper. But, like I said before, very briefly, I mean, other than Carmelo Anthony signing with New York, I mean, I don't know if the market means anything, just so long as you win. Jake, what do you think?
I think that's true. Like, there's always a whole debate do you want the big money free agents to sign with big market? Is it better for them to sign with big markets? Like, there was a whole thing, like, obviously, we thought the Blue Jays had a time, then again, he ends up going to the Dodgers. There's a whole thing like, would he?
That still hurts. Okay, be gentle, all right?
I can imagine. But there was a whole debate, would he have been, would the league have been better off him going to Toronto, or him going to the Los Angeles Dodgers? Obviously, the general viewer might want him in Toronto because people are like, oh, but Dodgers are already stacked. Toronto's team that's not quite as, loaded talent-wise as Los Angeles Dodgers. Like, so then they kind of spread the talent out a little bit more. But then you look at it from a business side, maybe Major League Baseball, would they rather him in LA because that's just such a huge market? That was a whole debate. There's sides to both arguments. In fact, I don't really know where I even stand on that. I mean, I'm sure if he was on my team, I would obviously side with my team. But since I don't have a horse in the race, it's kind of hard to figure out. But going back to Austin Matthews, I do agree with Tony. I think he will earn more endorsements playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. A couple of years ago, before he got the contract and his contract was kind of coming up, and they were talking about, oh, he's going to get that extension. When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? People were saying, oh, he might want to go play for Arizona. I never saw it just because of how much of just a disaster Arizona was. Maybe if they were a more stable organization and they were a more consistent winner, maybe he would have looked into it a little more, something he would have been a little more interested in, and maybe it would have caught on a little more steam. But I never thought that was going to really happen. I mean, to me, for just in life, to stay at a place, to me, there really isn't a price. To go somewhere else, to take someone out of, somewhere they're comfortable, money definitely matters a lot more. I think Toronto gave him a big deal, but I didn't really think he would ever leave Toronto, at least not yet. It was just the way things are going. The only place I would have saw was maybe Arizona because maybe he's from there, like John Tavares from the New York Islanders a bunch of years ago play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Actually took a slight discount, though he still got a huge deal because discount. But just because Toronto at the time, Toronto was in a much better place than the Arizona Coyotes. The Arizona Coyotes they're playing in a college arena. It doesn't get worse than that. But yeah, I just think a guy like Matthews, he was drafted by Toronto first overall. Was a homegrown guy. He's become one of the best players in the league there. He's played his whole career there. I think that's saying for something. Randy, you mentioned Kevin Durant. Yes, Brooklyn is probably Brooklyn's a little smaller, obviously, than the New York Knicks, but that's probably a bigger market than Oklahoma City. But he's still probably made, like you said, the more money endorsements in Oklahoma City. So I do think that's saying for something like being developed somewhere. So I do think he probably makes more in terms of than if he's
I just want to say, Randy, in my opinion on this question is that the market, the city you play in matters if you're a role player more than if you're a superstar. If you're a superstar, winning is what matters. Like, for example, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he plays for the Milwaukee Bucks. This is no sort of market that someone would want to play in general if you just are picking on a map. But he is always of the highest paid players in the league, in the world, as far as professional athletes. And it's because of who he is, his personality, his winning mentality, his accomplishments, not Milwaukee.
Yeah, sure. But you know what? Very quickly, I'm sure we could definitely move on. But I mean, look at Green Bay. I mean, you got one of the smallest. I don't even know if you can call it a city. It's like it's a town essentially, and it's one of the most storied franchises. And I mean, you remember the Brett Favres and the Aaron Rodgers in their prime, and Reggie White and so on. But I mean, it is interesting for sure. I mean, there's definitely validity, and it seems that sure, maybe Austin Matthews would make a little bit more in Toronto, but I don't know. It's just because it's the bright lights. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't really mean dollar signs off the court or ice or whatever the case is. But speaking of the court, Tony, of course, we're days away from the start of another NBA season, and those championship days of our Toronto Raptors feels like a distant memory. And of course, the Raptors are not expected to have a strong season. I think FanDuel had predicted the Raptors being as low as low to mid 20s in terms of wins. I mean, are you expecting some quiet days at Scotiabank? Tony, as an employee of Scotiabank Arena, I mean, do you think the Rockin' Arena along Bay Street there is going to be a thing of the past?
No, I don't. I think Toronto's all in on it as a basketball town. And look, we didn't need Masai Ujiri to tell us the obvious that this is a rebuild. I don't think any fans are too surprised by that. You also got to realize that the NBA is a very star-driven league, so a lot of people come out to watch who's playing against us, not just who's playing for us. That's just the reality. That's because the NBA knows how to build stars. They're just very good at that, and it goes back to the brand discussion we just had before. There's a lot more money to be made for NBA players, even if you're a top 15 guy, not necessarily a top 5 guy. But no, I don't. I think it's a good basketball town. I think they genuinely enjoy coming out and watching the game. And so is it going to be sold out? Ruckus? Obviously not. But I think they'll have good attendance. We usually are amongst the top 10 in the league in attendance on a yearly basis, if I'm not mistaken. Even tonight, I could tell you I clicked off working the preseason game tonight because I didn't expect it would be sold. So I wanted to save myself for a Justin Timberlake shift on Thursday. And it was really good tonight. They always put out the schedule during the day to see what, for a preseason game, it was good. And I'm thinking to myself, shit, I should have worked that instead of Justin Timberlake. So yeah, I think it'll be fine. I mean, obviously not 2019 numbers, but I think it'll be good.
I guess the better question would be, Tony, if there's going to be a lot of fans cheering for the other team. I mean, I remember those a lot of those years, and one game in particular, I actually went to Bosch's first game as a member of the Miami Heat. And of course, Dwayne Wade was there, LeBron was there, and it was like 50, maybe 55-45 Heat fans. And, maybe tickets are going to be sold, but have a lot of Raptor fans jump ship.
Maybe it's not Raptor fans. Maybe Raptor fans are selling tickets to these dummies to go watch them play. Like I sold my Messi tickets last week, and somebody paid me, $250 to go watch him play for half an hour. But what was I going to say? I was going to say something. But this is the culture of the NBA, right? It's a star. Like I said, it's a star-driven league, and you're in love with the one guy, not necessarily that team. So you see all those Miami Heat jerseys. I'm sure most of them had. What was he wearing? Number 6 back then.
LeBron was 6. Bosch was 1.
Was he wearing 6 for the Heat? Yeah,
he was wearing 6
LeBron
for the Heat. Maybe a tribute to Bill Russell or Wade was 3.
Tribute to himself, probably. It was a tribute.
What was that,
to the
Jake?
amount of
I said knowing LeBron, that's the kind of thing he would do.
But it was probably a tribute to the amount of championships he thought he was going to get.
Well, it actually stands for the amount of finals losses he has.
Fine.
That's what
It's a tribute. Exactly. I like Jake. Keep him on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pro
What do you
LeBron,
think, Neel?
but
What do I think? What do I think about the Raptors?
About the Raptor thing, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that Toronto being a large city, large market, large encatchment area, a lot of corporate money, there's always going to be a low floor for seat filling because you're going to have a lot of these corporate types that are constantly there's a high floor on how many season seats, boxes that are always going to be sold no matter what because they're part of that company or that firm's established entertainment services to their clients or whoever. And then you're going to have the fans. And I think just like any other big city, Toronto has a higher share of diehard true fans, but it also has its higher share of casual bandwagoners that will they'll be Heat fans for a few years, and then now they're all of a sudden Golden State fans for another few years. And all of a sudden, pick your poison. Now they're back to Lakers fans when LeBron got there. They just kind of follow. They don't stick to a certain team like me, you, Tony, and Jake. My definition, just throwing it out there, of a true diehard fan is you've got to been through 5 years of shit and come out the other side to be labeled a diehard fan. And there's just too many fans out there that do not meet that definition. And, I know a lot of people like that, but I know a lot of people that are diehards too. And Toronto has a good mix of both. And that's what you need to stay afloat and buoyed as a franchise is you don't care where the money comes in. You just want it coming in. So you want the bandwagon fans. You want the diehard fans. You want everyone coming to the game. Toronto will always have a high floor, but winning will determine the ceiling.
Jake, as we've been just talking about, diehard and loyalty to teams and so on, and I'm kind of intrigued. Obviously, you being in New York, and I mean, do you have friends or do you know people who jump from the Mets to the Yankees or the Jets to the Giants or the Knicks to the Oklahoma City Thunder or whatever the case is? I mean, I'm guessing that in New York, you are going to be cheering for one team until the very bitter end.
Yeah, in New York, it's definitely more like that than some other spots. I know some people, the first it goes, maybe if you're not really into baseball, you kind of root for both the Mets and the Yankees. You're just an overall New York baseball fan. So I know a couple people like that. I've ran into people like that over the years, but that's as far as it goes. If you just happen to be just a casual fan of that specific sport, you're just a casual sports fan in general. They just kind of root for, all the teams that play, in New York for that sport. That's about as far as it goes.
Yeah, no, I thought as much. Neel, I mean, as we embark on another NBA season, I mean, is there anything that really jumps out of the page? I mean, I have something in mind with regards to most intriguing storyline, but is there something that is catching your attention?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Any true fan is going to say that the biggest storyline of next year is how many Instagram posts is LeBron going to post with Bronny? I mean, how many points per game will Bronny have next year, guys? No. All jokes aside, to be honest, Randy, the answer to this was a loaded question. I mean, the whole season to pick one storyline is very difficult. So I'll give you a top, and then I'll throw just a touch, a sprinkle on a few others. But like, I think for me, the top storyline is Wemby's ascension, and that's from a personal player standpoint. From a team standpoint, I'll give you something else. But Wemby has a chance. There's nobody like him since LeBron. LeBron has been the last generational star, truly generational. You can't say that really about Kawhi, Giannis. You can't say it about Kevin Durant. He hasn't won enough. You can't say it about a lot of these guys that maybe some would say could have rivaled LeBron's not only hype pre-draft, but what he became. And I think Wemby is the biggest thing since LeBron. And after his rookie year, everyone's belief is just even that much more higher. This is a guy that is absolutely a generational talent, health permitting. Health will be everything for this guy because if he stays healthy, I'll tell you right now, he's winning multiple MVPs. He's winning multiple Defensive Player of the Years. And he probably is winning multiple championships as long as he stays with the Spurs because that's a first-class organization, top to bottom. Like I say with all these other sports, everything is trickled down. It starts with ownership. It starts with – that's where the culture starts. And then it goes downwards. Look at the New York Jets, how they handle Robert Saleh. Woody Johnson is a terrible owner. He sets a terrible precedent from a top down. The Knicks are finally starting to get it, even though James Dolan had to willingly step aside finally to let his guys run the show, which is a good ownership move on his part. But Wemby, now he has a solid core. The guys that he had last year, they kept a few of those young guys that are looking real nice and getting older, getting more experience. And now they throw in Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul, old. I get it. He's old. But, hey, for 25 minutes a game, if his job is to direct all these young guys with talent but no direction, and he's an extension of Pop on the floor, that could be beautiful for not only him but for Wemby and the rest of the team. Harrison Barnes, another very solid role player, veteran. This team can really do some special things, and I think because of those additions and because of what we already know Wemby to be, I have a feeling he has a very good chance at Defensive Player of the Year and an outside chance at MVP this year. And the Spurs have a chance to make it past at least one round in the playoffs. As I don't think they're going to make the conference finals, but they have a chance to win a round, or at least maybe.
I don't know. Where did they finish last season? I mean,
last year, I don't think you can compare it to because they didn't have any of the vets. They rested a lot of their players. They rested Wemby at times.
Sure.
That was truly a building year to see what they had, and now they know. That's why they would never have gotten CP and Harrison Barnes if they didn't think they had something to do this year.
I'm kind of with you with CP3, but I mean, I don't know if they're going to make that much of a difference.
But I think
sorry, what I was going to say, Neel, is that the big storyline for me, no word of a lie, is LA and LeBron and Bronny. I mean, I really do believe this. I think it's just an absolute disgrace about what's going on with the Lakers. And, there was no chance. Like, I don't really follow college. I don't follow college basketball at all. And I mean, before the season when Bronny played the 1 year at USC, there was all this hype, and I thought that he was doing really well. Saw a stat line, and I was like, "You cannot be serious." And then, the possibility of LeBron and Bronny's agent saying, "Don't draft Bronny. He's only he's not going to report." And then he actually does get drafted by LA, and the preseason is just showing how exactly he is expected to play. I mean, how long is this gonna ride out in LA? I mean, yeah, sure, LeBron's got a real hard-on to play with his kid. I mean, that's cool, that's great. I mean, is there really any difference between Bronny and Thanasis in Milwaukee? I mean, is there a difference with Udonis Haslem in Miami? I mean, like he played, he was at the end of the bench for a number of years and never saw any playing time. But I mean, it's a shame it's gotten this way. But I mean, the Lakers was this storied franchise, and of course it still is. But I mean, LeBron, who I am a LeBron guy. I mean, he's just simply running it like as if it's his toy.
Yeah, but Randy, there's a perspective that you have, which is certainly valid. But there's also the perspective that LeBron has built up a cachet that is unrivaled in this league. He's done it through accomplishment. He's done it through meeting the hype, which was also unparalleled. And, if his son is good enough that he can even be on a radar. Now, don't forget, he had that cardiac issue,
yes, for sure.
arrhythmia, which totally derailed his USC year. One can only imagine that should he have not had any health issues, his year would have at the very least, gone better than it did. He showed some flashes. I watched a couple of games. Now, should he have been drafted? Probably not. But
probably,
but when you talk about, okay, you talked about Thanasis and you talked about Haslam. First of all, 3 totally different scenarios. You got to take Udonis Haslem out of there. He has cachet.
Fair enough.
You don't even throw him
Fair
in a
enough.
conversation with Bronny and Thanasis. But when it comes to Thanasis and Bronny, I will say that Thanasis is more egregious of what you call it. What's the term? Tony, help me out here.
Nepotism?
Nepotism. That is a much more egregious case of nepotism than Bronny, in my opinion. Thanasis is a glorified cheerleader and a half-assed bodyguard. That's all he is. He cannot do anything on the floor that will ever help a team win. Bronny, the book is still out on that.
Oh, I don't know.
All right, let me chime in here. First of all, I think I'm outside of Skip Bayless. I'm probably the biggest LeBron hater out there. I hate everything about the guy. I think he's one of the most overrated athletes in America. I cannot stand him. When people compare him to Michael Jordan, I almost throw up. It's absolutely insane and it's absolutely pathetic. And I do think this is the thing with Bronny. I don't have a personal war with Bronny. He seems like a nice kid, good kid. Obviously he, like Neel mentioned, he had the health problem. I hope he's doing well and all that.
Sure.
So I saw a stat. His team at USC averaged 16 points a game. He did not get drafted. Bronny averaged 4 on a USC team that was absolutely terrible. It was 11th in the Pac-12. Didn't even come close to the tournament, which has 64 teams. And he got drafted. And again, look, I don't have a problem with Bronny. I get it. He's a 55th pick. Obviously, if a 55th pick doesn't work out, who cares? In the NBA, outside the lottery, it's very hard to find guys at the 55th pick, and very often they don't really work out. My issue is he's only getting drafted because of his dad. That is a fact. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. He was only drafted this year because of his dad. If he had said, you know what, I'm going to go back to school for a year. He worked hard. He went out and had, a somewhat solid year last year. And then, whatever, second round pick, first round pick, maybe undrafted, and the team scoops him up. I wouldn't have an issue with it. But it's the fact that, that's like, to me, the definition of nepotism. Thanasis is pretty bad as well. Like you said, he's the guy he jumps around, gives us some high fives. Again, obviously he's only in the league because of his brother. But to me, Bronny just, he's never showed me anything. Obviously, we haven't seen him a whole lot, but to me, he's never showed me anything. And the fact that he might play serious minutes on the Lakers is just absolutely mind-boggling, because as of right now, the kid just cannot play. But obviously, all we've seen is the Summer League and the preseason. Overall, hasn't looked very good. Obviously, it's a small sample size. Games don't really matter, so it's really hard to take much from that. But he's playing against guys that, for the most part, aren't going to start or play a whole lot of minutes, and he looks like it's the first time the guy's ever picked up a basketball. I don't think the guy can play. I don't think he's a professional basketball player. I don't know if he's a pro in like another country. I think he sucks. I think he's absolutely LeBron's pathetic, and it drives me nuts. It makes me want to throw up.
Okay. I mean, like,
some hot takes.
This is
But
about
I will say this.
Actually, sorry, Neel. Tony, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, this is about LeBron stroking his ego. And like I've said in the past, I am not a fan of LeBron James either, but I've always felt It always seems to me from afar that he's a good father. He's an active father,
Sure.
very active, good with his kids, but I don't like the position he's putting his son in right now. It's not a good one. It's not a good one. And and this is about stroking his ego, excuse me, and shame on the Los Angeles Lakers. Like what's happened to that organization to allow that circus to happen? And I hear a lot I hear the term "I'm a Laker fan in recess." I mean, there are a lot of fans waiting for LeBron to get the fuck out of there so they can get back and enjoy their team. They've become a disgrace. They've really become like, and it's so crazy the Buss family allowing this to happen, the Laker organization allowing this to happen, and um, I know a lot of people like to say, "Oh, nepotism's part of life. It happens everywhere." Sure, yeah, you want to be a coach who grooms your kid to become another coach. The Shanahans, the Belichicks. It happens. We get it. It's a different story on the court or on the ice or on the field. That should not be happening. That's a disgrace to me. Sports is a meritocracy, 100%, no questions asked. And I think this is a bit of a gong show. And even with JJ Redick hiring, there's a lot of people
Oh
already
yeah,
saying,
sure.
"What the fuck is going on there too?" Because he's had some experiences during some press conferences so far where he's rubbing people the wrong way. So um, I'm I hope I watch that thing collapse, just completely
Yeah.
disintegrate in front of my eyes this season. I'm praying for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this reeks of nepotism. He's not even trying to hide it. It's an ego stroke, like you said, but he did win a championship for them. He brings in a lot of money for the LA Lakers. Like, let's not even question that. The amount of money he brings in there, that's padding
Of
Jeannie
course.
Buss's wallet for a long time to come. And so whether they felt they owed LeBron or whether they felt that it was in their best interest to have that attention, media attention, national attention. I mean, it's ridiculous in this social media age what something like this, which is really irrelevant as it comes down to the competition of the season, yet this has taken so many headlines and so much of the attention away from maybe teams that deserve it, players that deserve it. So it is what it is. But I will say this is that I will say that there is a chance that Bronny, not anytime soon, but his ceiling might be a pretty good defensive guard in the NBA. He has shown some real flashes on defense. It's his offensive game that is not NBA ready or may never be. But I mean, he looks like he can play some real defense in his defense, pun intended. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, as we move on, I wonder, would Fred VanVleet have the same career if he, didn't go the full 4 years, if he was a one and done like Bronny? I mean, are we going to see like maybe those extra years? And I know that LeBron is on borrowed time here, but maybe a couple of extra years or maybe a year in Europe would have helped Bronny
and that's the
elevate
other
his
side
game.
of it. Did Bronny take the opportunity from the next Fred VanVleet by being the guy that they chose instead of an undrafted free agent, for example? Hey, Randy, can I just hit you with a few more storylines that I'm very interested in? Point bullet form. One,
Very quickly.
Is this the start of an Oklahoma City dynasty this year? It could be. No, number two, is this the return of the Memphis Grizzlies? Zach Edey looks great. John Morant looks like he can still play really well. I love the direction and what's going to happen with the Knicks and the Sixers. That top of the East, very interesting this year, even more so than last year. And then Cooper Flag. Who's tanking for Coop is the question.
Yeah, all those years ago, there was a real push for the Raptors to tank for Wiggins, and definitely glad that they didn't. But, Jake, how can we talk about basketball and not talk about your New York Knicks? I mean, hey, it was a long time ago since New York won the Larry O'Brien. I mean, it was so long ago. Yours truly wasn't even born yet. And, hey, could it very well be the case that the New York Knicks might be a contender? If memory serves me correctly, it was 1999 when they last made the finals against San Antonio.
Mhm.
I mean, how much? Hey, of course, the big trade happened with Karl Anthony Towns coming in. Dante DiVincenzo seems to have an issue with Jalen's pop. I mean, I mean, hey, in a roundabout way, I mean, how excited are you about what may happen at MSG with the Knicks?
I'm very excited. Also, you made a lot of moves. You give up all those draft picks to get Mikal Bridges. You make the move to get Karl-Anthony Towns. You give up Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo in that trade. At least they have a shot. For years they've been such a disaster. So at least Leon Rose and company over there are trying to build a team the right way, not trying to do like what the Suns did, just give up everything for an overpaid veteran, and now you have no money and draft picks to improve a team. So at least they're trying to do it the right way. I think they have a very good team. Obviously, this is a team that their head coach Tom Thibodeau, if they fit what he likes to do, a lot of guys that like playing with each other. Obviously, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges are very good friends. They won a national championship together in college. So obviously, we thought it was with DiVincenzo. Obviously, he ended up getting moved. There was room. The whole thing with Brunson was weird because there was a rumor when DiVincenzo got traded that he was unhappy in New York because he was going to have a lesser role this year because you have OG Anunoby for a full year. You bring in Mikal Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
That was shot down eventually. Dante said before the game, in the preseason game, like, yeah, that's not true. I had a phenomenal year last year. I had a lot of fun last year. So I'm not really sure what exactly happened. I know he was talking some trash to the Knicks bench. It was hard to say if it was just banter, if he was actually being serious. And then for whatever reason, Brunson's dad, who of course is an assistant coach on the team, he's not just some random guy sitting in course. He is an assistant coach on the team. With the New York Knicks, they also got into it. Dante said, he basically said, I'm a passionate guy. It's all good. He kind of brushed it off in the post game. So pretty much not a huge storyline, but definitely something that happened that was kind of odd. But I am very excited with the New York Knicks. I think they got a really good team. I think they're even better than they were last year, and they were good last year. So,
but do you think Karl-Anthony Towns could be the difference maker, Jake?
I think it's different between losing in the conference semifinals and the conference finals. Will it get them past the Boston Celtics and into the NBA Finals? I'm not sure. I've actually never been the biggest fan of Karl-Anthony Towns, but I think he's a better fit than Julius Randle for the New York Knicks. I did like Randle more than most. I thought he was a good player. Obviously, he had some trouble in the postseason, in the two trips. But I did like him as a Knick. But the Knicks have needed a big that can shoot for a very long time. Towns and Randle both don't play any defense, but the Knicks have enough defenders to where I think they can kind of overcome that. They really needed a big man too. Isaiah Hartenstein in Oklahoma City. I think they will still miss him to an extent. It's a shame that you lose him. But also Mitchell Robinson's not going to play probably until about January, and we can't trust him anyway. That guy is just always hurt. I'll take him as a backup center. He can grab some rebounds or block some shot, but doesn't have much of an offensive game. He's maybe the worst free throw shooter I've ever seen. It's scary how bad that guy is at the line. But so it was a huge need for them. So you take DiVincenzo, a guy who with Bridges coming in, not he isn't absolutely needed, and I think Towns is a better fit than Julius Randle. But you have a lot of forwards already, so you were able to give one up. So I think that makes them a better basketball team. And I'm very excited for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, definitely. After it seems to be a long time coming for sure. And hey, if the New York Knicks could do it, I'm sure a lot of basketball fans wouldn't mind seeing that happen. So, guys, we are headed to the last segment of the show. Jake has even taken part in this edition, and it is called Straight Facts, Bro. Relax. So basically the deal is that I am going to drop a statement, and if you agree, you're going to say straight facts. If you disagree, you're going to say bro, relax, and you are going to tell me why. And Tony, I know that you do have a really long day tomorrow. I'd love to start things off with yourself. And there was definitely a romance with outdoor hockey games, with the NHL and whether it's the Heritage Classic or the Winter Classic, which is usually on January 1st. It's just a viewing spectacle. And I personally went to the Centennial Classic, Leafs and Red Wings at BMO Field. Absolutely incredible time. And the Stadium Series had as many as 6, 7 outdoor games in one season. This season, however, there is the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve at Wrigley Field, and Ohio Stadium, home of the Buckeyes, they're going to have an outdoor game, the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets. I'm wondering if the NHL is seeing the end of the road for outdoor hockey games. The NHL will cease outdoor hockey games within 5 years. Straight facts or bro relax?
Oh, bro, relax. It's a moneymaker for them. It's their ratings are usually pretty good for the Winter Classic. Um, any way they can sell the game, they'll do it. And so that's a bro, relax. I think there's too many of them personally. I like the fact, is there only two this year? Is that
I only caught
and
2. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. If that's the case, then that's great. If we have a Heritage Classic up here in Canada and have the Winter Classic down there, I think the Stadium Series was overdone, but I don't think they'll get rid of them completely.
Hmm. Yeah. I can't remember. I don't believe. I wonder why the outdoor game is not on New Year's Day. I mean, I thought it was NBA and Christmas. I mean, I thought January 1st and an outdoor hockey game was just
My
music.
guess is so it doesn't coincide with the college football game. I'm assuming one of the
Yeah, perhaps.
NCAA college football playoff games. That's my guess. So I know they've moved it in the past over to January the 2nd for that reason.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it will be interesting to see if they actually do ride this thing out. I personally hope they would, because it is pretty cool to see an outdoor hockey game. Neel, the talk around NBA circles is that expansion may be coming soon. And of course, us here in Canada would love to see another NBA team back in Vancouver, but I think there's a couple of cities that are at the top of the list, and you have to think with the summer season in the NBA, the rookie camp, or why can't I think of what the actual tournament is in Vegas? But you have to think Vegas is going to get an NBA team, and you have to think that Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, is going to get a team as well. NBA expanding by 2 more teams in less than 5 years, and those 2 teams would be in Vegas and Seattle. Straight facts, bro. Relax.
Straight facts, bro. That is straight facts, and it's a poorly hid secret that when the next expansion cycle comes along, those are the first hitters up to bat. And Seattle, much like Vancouver, but especially Seattle, I mean, they do have a fantastic sports scene. They had a fantastic fan base. The nuances of why they went to Oklahoma City, it's not like they couldn't have continued to support the Sonics over there. They were doing great, and they're gonna be just fine once they get the Sonics back. And it's already been said by OKC that all of the Supersonics history is back to them. OKC does not claim any of that Sonics history as soon as Seattle gets a team. Just another clue that Seattle is in fact going to be one of the next teams in the cycle. And Vegas, when it comes to Vegas, again, another poorly hid secret. Everyone knows Vegas. Every sport is coming to Vegas. You see it with the Raiders. The A's are going there. And now the Golden Knights have been such a big success. Vegas is just a right market for the picking. And it's been proven now that sports can thrive there, both from the local fan base as well as the massive tourism that brings people there. And just another thing for people to do on trips. And so it makes a lot of sense. You've heard LeBron already say that he'd like to be part of a Vegas franchise when it does come there. Maybe he's lining up his retirement, just like he seemingly lines up everything in his personal story to fit his needs or to fit his. The world revolves around LeBron, as we all know. Maybe Bronny will be part of the expansion draft that the Las Vegas LeBrons get. But definitely straight facts, man, and I don't think there's any two ways about that.
It is unfortunate, Jake, that we didn't get a chance to really get into the big trades that took place in the NFL. Of course, with Tony and Neel being Buffalo Bills fans. But hey, you as a Jets fan will definitely get a chance to speak about Davante Adams heading to New York alongside his boy Aaron Rodgers. I mean, of course, they have a history as great as it did in Green Bay. And I mean, hey, Nathaniel Hackett is back in, behind Aaron Rodgers and so on. I mean, originally I was going to ask you if Aaron Rodgers has the ability to rejuvenate this season. I mean, the Jets have not had the greatest start to this NFL season. However, I mean, is one person make a difference? And could that person be Davante Adams? Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams having enough to salvage this New York Jets season and make the playoffs? Straight facts or bro relax?
It's bro relax for me. Look, I've seen this movie way too many times. Davante's a great player, and I think the move to get him isn't necessarily a horrible trade. You obviously put him back with a good friend who we made a lot of great plays with, obviously in Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. But no one's fixing this mess. He already fired the coach, and I was not a fan of Saul by any means. He needed to go, but the way they handled that was really, 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 really poor, very unprofessional. Bill Belichick said it on the Manning cast, like, that's Woody being Woody. He's a complete clown. He had a press conference today. He looked like he looked clueless because he is clueless. Like, you know, on paper, obviously Aaron Rodgers with Davante, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, that the defense is still pretty good. You think, oh, they can turn this thing around. Things still get into the playoffs. I don't see it. This team is cursed. You know, Rodgers is 40, not near the same player. He's not that great anymore. You know, obviously you make the coordinator change when you fire Saleh. Hackett gets demoted. Todd Downing gets the promotion. I don't think that's going to do a whole lot. I don't think, although Ulbricht defined defensive coordinator, I'm sure, seems like a nice guy. But I mean, in the first game we saw, they were just as unprepared as they were under Robert Saleh. They were just as undisciplined as they were under Robert Saleh. Same red zone issues, same lapses, you know, with guys running the wrong routes and guys missing blocks and guys dropping passes. You got, you know, more issues on special teams. It's the same crap over and over and over again. I really don't think this is going to change anything. Maybe they win one more game with Adams. Maybe instead of going 6-11, they go 7-10. Whoop-de damn do. But I don't think it's going to really lead them to the playoffs.
Can I add something here? They fired Robert Saleh. A lot of people had a big problem with that. Jeff Ulbrich, respected guy, now the interim head coach, and they stripped Hackett of play calling duties, gave it to Todd Downing. Todd Downing teams historically heavy run offenses. Not only that, both Ulbrich and Downing, we are going to reestablish the run. We are going to be a running team from now on. 2 days later, lose to Buffalo, trade for Davante Adams. How the hell are you prioritizing the run? Sounds like Aaron Rodgers is telling you what to prioritize.
Yeah,
and just for the record, the Bills made the much more impactful trade today, and the Bills are big winners today, just like they were yesterday.
That was a great move getting Amari Cooper, and also the Bills actually have a chance making the playoffs. Just their season is done. Their season was done when they lost to the Denver Broncos.
And they're also locked down to what? All of his contract, right?
Yes, it's around his whole contract, which is
what is he, $35 million a year, and he's got 3 years left.
Yeah, it was a desperate move by a desperate and just horrible organization.
Yeah.
Hey, you know how much Buffalo's paying Amari Cooper this year? Less than $1 million.
Exactly, nothing.
Yeah. And he's a free agent, so yeah. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, there's a business side to it always too, right? But that was a terrible game last night. Like officiating wise.
Man, it was brutal.
That was the worst roughing the passer call I've ever seen in my life.
That was hard
on Aaron Rodgers, and even Aaron Rodgers was speaking to AJ Epinesa, and you can see him saying, and he said after the game too, he said that was not roughing the passer. Once again, Randy, the pussification of sports. Football is getting there too.
Football is not immune, really even though it's still the roughest of sports. It's not.
Well, one day, maybe we'll see.
The day flags are hanging off these guys' belts is the day I stop watching football.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
Awesome. Guys, great chat as always. Really want to thank you guys so much. Hey, Jake, you got a couple of fans, myself especially, hoping for your New York Mets. So maybe not so much the Knicks. I mean, we are in the same division, so
Yeah.
but I mean, I still got love for OG. So definitely some exciting times.
I love the Knicks.
For Tony Antoniou, Neel Katarey, and Jake Cardinale, I am Randy Katarey. This is Voice of the Fans Canada. Hope you're doing well and keeping safe. We will talk to you next time.
Ooh, okay.